Okay, Emmanuel, you have the floor now.
Yeah, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay. Good afternoon from Japan and good afternoon there in Nigeria. My name is Emmanuel Haruna. So I'm very honored to be in this panel. Yeah, for the sake of so because the plan is very huge. So I and my fellow panelists we divide in we were 26 in number. So we made arrangement earlier that okay, may so be starting with the first 13, then I conclude with it with the other 13. So
Okay.
sorry, and yeah,
Okay.
Elder.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, so I think we should take Okwemi first then.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Okwemi, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm clear.
Yes, you are very
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I feel excited and honored to be on this platform speaking on the economic sustainability plan. As we all know that presently the widespread epidemic of COVID-19 has interrupted a lot of sectors, a lot of structures, the political, the social, the economic, the religious, the financial structure, even the topmost economics in the world, which are the G20 nations, Japan, France, USA, UK, China, many of them are on the verge of collapse. So with this situation, it calls for Nigeria to re-strategize and plan ahead for the future. Though this plan is just for a short term, and I hope and I believe in the government that they will achieve the plan. We know that this COVID-19 is not just a mere health challenge; it's an economic challenge as well. As we said, business transactions have been disrupted. Loss of jobs, salaries are being slashed, industries are being shut down. Everything has been comatose. Global economy is on a slow progress. So as a result, no nation is ready to help any other nation. They have to take care of their citizens first, because there's no, as they say, there's no free money for now for any other nation. So this calls for President Buhari to set up a panel, and the panel will be chaired by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. And all these panels, several, I think it's all the major ministries in Nigeria will be working hand in hand. This involves the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Finance and Budget, National Planning, Ministry of Trade and Investment, Ministry of Labor. Several other top agencies are going to be working hand in hand. The panel was set up on March 30, 2020, and the terms of reference or the basis of the plan is to develop a clear economic sustainability plan in response to the challenges that are being faced by Nigerians, propose monetary and fiscal policy measures and stimulus package that will support private business mostly affected by pandemic. Some people have lost their jobs, so this plan is going to focus more on those people, and they work in hand. They've created measures to work in hand with state government and the FCT, the 36 states of Nigeria and FCT. So all these plans have been articulated. So in order not to waste time, well, we could see that the scenario that was chosen that was selected for this plan was they brought up 4 scenarios, scenario 1, 2, 3, 4, but the major scenario that they picked on was scenario 3, and it's as a result of the globe, because Nigeria is an oil dependent country. So they had to focus on scenario 3 that requires a stimulus of 2.3 trillion naira. 2.3 trillion naira. It's as a result of the fluctuation in oil prices, because most revenue and earnings of this nation comes from the oil. So they had to focus on a $30 benchmark in carrying out the plans. So let's just go straight to the plan. Um, so part of the plans, part of the objectives is, one, they focus on the monetary measures, the physical and monetary measures. Hello, now the physical measures. One of the plan is to mobilize and preserve non-oil revenues. What do we mean by the non-oil revenues? That is taxation and borrowing. Government government are going to source their revenue from taxation. Yeah, government is going to mobilize resources to stimulate the economy and fund their projects, and most of this money are going to come from taxation and activate the provisions of Finance Act 2020 in support of MSME. What is the Finance Act 2020? That is, VAT has been increased. We are all aware that VAT has been increased from 5% to 7.5%. From 5% to 7.5%, and uh, all other all other provisions in that Finance Act, that is the Value Added Tax Act, the Custom and Excise Tariffs Act, the Personal Income Tax Act. All these has been reviewed. So we expect that more people will still pay much tax, and this will go back into the economy. Another under the policy there is is to support strategic industries. Those are the aviation, hospitality, and road transport sections. So this policy, the ministry, implementing agencies are Ministry of Finance, Finance, Budget and National Planning, and Central Bank. And Central Bank has already started its own program. I think billion the 50 billion intervention fund, which is tagged the 50 billion intervention fund, which is tagged as a TCF, that is targeted credit facility, is a stimulus package to support household and micro, small and medium enterprise, that is the MSME. And the details have been documented on their website. Another policy under the immediate fiscal measure is the REDISC. That is they convert the World Bank REDISSE program to support COVID. It is REDISE. It is an healthcare sector research. It's an healthcare sector research. No, the RECR, sorry, is aimed to strengthen national and regional capacity to address disease threats. At least most of the funds will go into research. The second objective here is physical measures to safeguard oil revenues. These are, as we all know, the government has deregulated the petroleum sector. That is, it has hands-off funding the petroleum sector. So part of the funds here will be added to the stimulus package. the implementing agencies that are going to be working for these objectives is the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Department of Petroleum Resources, that's DPR, and NNPC. So this policy is just to ensure that all royalties and taxes from the oil sector are not paid into the NNPC account. They are paid directly into the federation account, so as to allow money be available for the local government sector. Another measure is to fiscal measures to reduce non-essential spending. This is like streamlining government expenditure, eliminating wasteful spending. So many projects that are not necessary by the government will be cut out. Will be cut out so as to create funds for the government in providing stimulus package. Now, other fiscal measures, I think I've spoken on it, is to mobilize funds and preserve non-oil revenues. I think I've spoken on that. That's where the Finance Act comes in place, increase in VAT rate to 7.5%, and the review of the pension funds. Just yesterday, the government has said is going to review the pension funds for roads and housing development. So we move now to the monetary aspect, the monetary policy pressure, the monetary policy measures rather. This is supporting the economy using monetary measures.
Hello, Okwemi. So you need to wrap up in 2 minutes, please. You need to wrap up in 2 minutes because the SSA will be coming in by 15 minutes to 5. So
the monetary The monetary pressure is to provide loans to the local and manufacturing sector and granting them a moratorium of 1 year. That is a delay period in payment of the loan given out to the local manufacturing and production sector. Interest rates has been reduced from 9% to 5%. Another measure is to collaborate with state government, because most of these funds are going to go into state government in providing housing, agriculture, and off-grid power projects. I think I will end this for now and allow Mr. Haruna to continue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, please, just to recap some of the things that Okwemi said for the benefit of everyone. So, Okwemi made mention of the fact that there's a Finance Act that was passed this year around January. Now, that Finance Act is, of course, what allowed the government to increase the VAT, from 5% to 7.5% as a way to generate more revenue. Now, when the pandemic also started, remember that government has always paid subsidy on fuel. But with the pandemic, and as a way to save money, government stopped paying subsidy on fuel. So it means that we buy fuel today at market rates. Whatever the market decides is what we pay for in terms of fuel. And government has done that as a way to ensure that 500 and something billion naira they spend per annum subsidizing fuel, that money now will be diverted into trying to rejig back our Nigerian economy. Now, beyond that one, the Nigerian government has also put funds aside that ought to use in implementing some projects in agriculture and in low-cost housing across some states. Now, remember that there is this special works program that the Ministry of Labor is managing. The money allocated to paying the staff, buying the materials, is what, of course, part of this money from the 2.3 trillion naira will be used to do. Now, this is the best part. The CBN government, as part of course, their economic recovery plan, launched out a 50 billion naira intervention fund for small businesses and families. A lot of families, a lot of people I know applied for that particular fund. Now, beyond that money that was given to everybody, the CBN also unveiled an 100 billion health facility. So if you own an hospital, you own a clinic, you own a pharmacy, any health facility that needs an upgrade, the CBN also has 100 billion naira allocated as a way to boost our health capacity. Now, the loan that Okwemi spoke about, the World Bank loan, Nigeria did not take a new loan. Nigeria already had an existing bilateral agreement with some of these multilateral institutions like the World Bank, the IMF, to access a loan when it needs to. So what the government has simply done is, rather than waiting till after the pandemic, the government decided to activate the agreement now, being that they need that money now to boost our health capacity in delivering quality health for the citizens. So this is just a summary of the points that Okwemi made from everything he has said before. So I do want out to Aruna. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, yeah, the moderator. Yeah, and I also want to appreciate my fellow panelists, Mr. Okwemi. Yeah, thank you so much for. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly, loud and clear.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. I think I wouldn't want to waste much of my time. Then I'll continue where he stopped, because my fellow panelists spoke about some of the identified 26 programs. So we need to understand this very clearly. We have a plan and we have programs. Programs is quite different from projects. This plan contains 20 programs. Those programs, so you was able to highlight and identify 13 of them. Then I will continue for where it stopped, very briefly. Then one of the, number 14 of the program is the issue of the future of work. We understand how ideas now propel technology. So now one of the programs that the government have identified is the future of work. Try to connect the ideas with technology. What do they mean? They intend to create at least 1 million jobs in outsourcing. So basically, the ministry that has the mandate to implement this program is Federal Ministry of Communication and Digital Technology. Because globally now, a lot of countries are moving towards digital economy. And that is why this program is very important. So, and again, so we should also pay attention to the duration of such program. So this program is gonna last for 12 months. Take note on that. Then another program is that of the National Gas Expansion Program. So we call it NGEP. So it's going to engage is to ensure that Nigeria redirect, so in terms of the power consumption to LPNG. So that is to ensure that household will be able to consume those LPNG at the cheaper rate to mitigate these challenges. And the ministry in question to implement this program is the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and National and NNPC. And the quantum of the budget for that intervention, it's gonna cost 90 billion naira, and it's gonna implement for the period of 12 months. So we should take note. And there are some tracks. So apart from the track one, that is gonna cost like 90 billion naira, then we have track two, that's gonna cost 23.4 million naira. We should take note. And those projects are gonna implement within the last span of 12 months. Then point number 16, another program that they designed as part of the plan is to support small and medium-sized enterprises. So before now, to support those businesses, because one of the impact of COVID-19 is on small scale, those informal sector, those mama put on the road. So this program now targeted at those guys to say, so there are a lot of federal government actually, and the ministry that's supposed to implement those this program is the Federal Ministry of Trade, Industry, Trade, and Investment, and so it's going to cost approximately 50 million naira to support the payment of salary. You know, these small scale the businesses employ at least 10 to 50 employees, and most of them have already signed employee. And government intends to support those businesses to keep people on the job. And another intervention is around 200 billion naira, so loan to artisan miners. So you know, in Nigeria we have all those artisan miners, right? In so many states in Nigeria. So those ones are engaging in the mining subsector. Hello?
Please.
Hello, moderator.
Yes, please, can we mute ourselves?
Okay. Then another important program that was identified in the plan is to ensure that construction and rehabilitation of our road. We all know how our roads is unmotorable. So government deem it fit that this project, if they invest money on it and make our road more, it will allow all those farmers from area connected. Those and another project being identified, a resilient aid sector. And this program aims to support our health care facilities and our small businesses to see how they can manufacture all those PPPs for this COVID-19 intervention, such as face masks and to mitigate the effect of COVID. And another critical project Hello, can you hear me? Moderator? Hello?
Hello, Haruna, we can't hear you.
Okay, yeah, Haruna,
hello, can you? Okay, please, yeah, let me go a bit faster, right? Then again, project number 28 is the most important project that affects the poor people in the rural areas. So which deals with the social investment program, so which we are very conversant with from the Ministry of Humanitarian and Disaster. So we have seen how government have been implementing that intervention, try to support people who are really impacted with this COVID-19, right? And a huge amount of money, around 87.06 billion naira is being earmarked or maybe perhaps budgeted for, and it's going to last for like a period of 12 months. And in the aviation sector, so we should not rule out aviation because of this closure of border. So airlines are being impacted negatively. So government has already earmarked 27 billion to support those aviation industries, right, to keep staffs on the jobs and to also, and the agency is the Federal Ministry of Aviation.
Okay,
Emmanuel is to support continuous learning.
Hello, Emmanuel. Your network seems to be breaking because from my own end, it's saying that your network bandwidth is low.
Wow.
Because you are breaking the lot.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, and somebody's just commented on the group too. You are breaking
the lot. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you quite clearly.
Okay. Then another most interesting program is on science and technology. And that science and technology is to ensure massive investment to see how government can integrate science and technology with housing, with agriculture, road, power solar projects. So those are key in terms of driving the economy. So, and in charge of it is the Federal Ministry of Science.
Okay.
The
Hello,
last
Emmanuel. Okay. Hello, Emmanuel. Yeah, your network is still breaking badly. We can barely hear you. Your network is still breaking badly. Okay. Okay. So I guess pending when we get Emmanuel back. But so far, so please, everyone should mute their videos, please. Everybody should mute their videos. If you don't mute your video, your audio, I mean, or your video, it obviously disturbs the network of any of our panelists. So please try to ensure that you mute your videos, mute your audio also. There's no need for you to project out your video if you are probably not commenting or asking questions here. So please, let's mute our videos, let's mute our audios. Now, I'll just recap some of the things that Emmanuel said. We should be having the senior special advisor joining us now, anytime from now. So he should be joining us shortly. But just to recap some of the things that Emmanuel said.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes. Are you there, Emmanuel?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay. So please, can you wrap up now? Just wrap up now.
Okay. Good. So now is that let me just move directly to the delivery of the plan. So which is the main cocoa of our discussion. It's very important. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me clearly, moderator?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay. So delivery is very key to the implementation of this plan. What do I mean very key to the implementation of this plan? Because now we have the Economic Sustainability Committee that is going to supervise the implementation of this plan in collaboration with the NEC, that is National Executive Council. What do I mean by National Executive Council? It consists of all the governors as part of the member. So ultimately, the delivery of the plan rests with the ministry being mandated to implement it, as well as the state government. So it's basically based on them. So the ministers at various ministry will be in charge of key implementation of those plans, right? Supervised by the Economic Sustainability Committee, vis-a-vis the NEC. So we should put that at the back of our mind. But there are some points that I want to mention here. So issue of interface between the public service and the private sector, because government alone will not be able to drive the process of implementation. So it needs the collaboration of the private sector. So the connection between the public service and the private sector is very key to the implementation of this plan. And another point I want to also mention here is that accountability in terms of the framework, right, and the monitoring mechanism is very key to the implementation of this plan. So we need to also put that at the back of our mind, that for us to deliver this plan, so we need those two important points. So I think for now, let me just rest my case. Yeah, okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very much, Emmanuel. So yes, I'm happy to say that the Senior Special Assistant to the President has joined us. So he will be the one that, of course, that will be speaking next. So just to give a general introduction to everyone, for my fellow Nigerians, yes, like our moderators, our panelists have earlier said, they've given you an objective overview of what the plan is. The plan is quite big, it's quite huge. We don't expect that you will get everything today. But now the good thing is the SSAP is here to speak to the most important facets of the plan. And of course, what was the thinking behind the plan? Thinking of it from a national point of view. And of course, what this plan entails aims to achieve. So whatever questions you have, please, for the audience, you can drop your questions in the comment section. If you have any question for him, he's here for 45 minutes. Whatever questions you have, please drop it in the comment section and we'll be taking those questions one after the other as he speaks. So thank you very much, Mr. Ajuri. You have the floor now, sir.
Thank you very much, my brother, for having me on this program. I greet everybody who is participating. One of the things that gives us a lot of optimism in terms of the future of the country is that we have young people who are viral, who are nationalistic in their orientation, who are ready to contribute their thoughts and ideas to the development of the country. Because for so long we've been really stigmatized as being those who take no interest, who are apathetic, who only care about Big Brother and all of that. So now, with that said, let me just start by saying that the Nigeria Economic Sustainability Plan 2020 is a very, very important plan for multiple reasons. One, you have the local content component, which essentially is the foundational ethos of the plan, to say that we are going to reconstruct this country utilizing only 100% indigenous Nigerian companies, who will use only 100% indigenous Nigerian labor, who will use only 100% indigenous Nigerian raw materials. So that is what you have. And so when we're constructing these roads, we're going to be sourcing our bitumen from Nigeria. And when we're constructing these homes, we're going to be sourcing our cement blocks, our limestone, our sand from Nigeria. And that's very, very strategic, because we want to make sure that every kobo of this 2.3 trillion naira is utilized to create not just direct jobs, but indirect jobs by patronizing Nigerian-owned businesses who will supply those raw materials. Now, aside from local content, we know that we have our own peculiarities as a nation. One of them is that, of course, we are a very diverse country and a very expansive country. And what that entails for any responsible government is to make sure that there is equity in terms of beneficiation. And that's why we have the policy in place within the Nigeria Economic Sustainability Plan, put together by the Economic Sustainability Committee, chaired by Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo at the instance of President Muhammadu Buhari. Is the Vice President and his team said, look, we have to ensure that every part of this country benefits from this plan equally. So now what you have is across the component parts of the plan, whether it be the agricultural component known as the Jobs for Food program, whether it be the housing component, whether it be the rural off-grid solar power component, all of the various elements of the plan all are in conformity with the notion that there must be equity in terms of distribution of spread of jobs and benefits. So, for example, let's take the agricultural component first, where you have an unprecedented agreement between the state governments and the federal government to work in synergy in this plan. What we had previously is a situation where they will come up with the economic plan at the center in Abuja, in the villa. They will come up with economic plans that are sophisticated, they're fancy, they sound great on paper, right? But when it comes to implementation, what do they fail to do? They fail to carry along the state governments who will ensure that these things are manifested in the lives of our people on the grounds, in our wards, and our local governments, and our communities across the country. So the Vice President and his team said, we're not going to make that mistake. From the beginning, because he doesn't just chair the Economic Sustainability Committee, he also chairs the National Economic Council. The Vice President now said, look, talk to each of the state governors across party lines. He said, okay, across the component parts of this program, what are the peculiarities, what are the potential obstacles that we may have to overcome to ensure that what we have envisaged in this plan is actually going to be on the ground in your communities, right? And so really they were able to kind of hash out and make sure that all of the various issues are addressed when we talk about implementation, because that is the Vice President's focus, is implementation. So now, what you have is an agreement in the agricultural component where the state governments have agreed to provide the federal government with between 20,000 hectares and 100,000 hectares of land from each state of the federation in exchange for the federal government employing millions of young people to execute an unprecedented land clearing and cultivation scheme where, in effect, we would clear and prepare lands that are not initially cultivatable to become cultivatable. then at that point, we'll be able to take the cultivatable lands and target high-value export commodities. These are cash crops, such as cocoa, such as cashew, such as sesame seed, and many others. Those that will earn us the most bang for our buck on the international food export market. Because on the front end, we're creating these jobs, right? These sustainable farming jobs, and intentionally targeting young Nigerians, because we have to create a cross-generational transfer of the farming, kind of productivity from the what is currently predominated by the middle-aged demographic to the upper middle-aged to elderly demographic. We're now trying to create a cross-generational transfer from that age demographic down to the young people, so that we will have a sustainable farming, agricultural production set of value chains into the future. And that's a very intentional effort on the part of this administration. So now, that's done. Now, that's the agricultural component. So you're going to have those sustainable jobs on the front end, and on the back end, of course, you're expediting the process of economic diversification by diversifying our revenues into high-value export commodity sales away from just oil and gas revenues from sales and all of that. Now, the second component, very major component, which we're very excited about, not just because of the initial set of jobs that were created, but also because of what it's going to do for our people across the country, is the housing component, which is very strategic, where you have mass. Sorry, before I go into housing, there's somebody just made a very critical point, which I almost forgot to mention, which is about processing. That we should not just be thinking of raw materials alone, that we should also be thinking of processing. I'm so happy that my good friend is paying attention and asked that very intelligent question. Processing is a major part of what we're doing. I would challenge anybody who is on this call to just do themselves a favor and do a quick Google search. If it's not now, you can do it after this conversation. Do a Google search of what we call the green imperative. The green imperative. It is a $1.2 billion MOU that we signed with the Brazilian government, between Nigerian government and Brazilian government, another government-to-government transaction eliminating middlemen from the process. And what we're doing is we are focusing on agricultural mechanization. That's separate from the NESP, by the way, but it's also integrated into it in a way. It's separate, but it's something that will play a factor, play a role in terms of our ability to massively cultivate not just high yields of produce quickly, but also to produce quality yields of produce. Because when you mechanize, what you're doing in effect is you're enhancing the quality of the produce that you're bringing out, so that you can effectively, effectively compete on the international export market with those who have already mechanized all of their agricultural processes. So we are dealing with processing. We're going to set up processing hubs across the country as part of the green imperative. To be specific, it's about 780 service centers across all local government areas of the Federation, where we're going to be processing raw materials like cocoa into refined chocolate, processing raw materials like soybeans into finished vegetable oil, and all of that, not just to satisfy our local demand and replace imports with local production, local processed value additive services and products, but also so that we can export things like vegetable oil, things like finished chocolate and all of that. So yes, processing is a major part of what we're doing in agriculture over the next 3 to 5 years, and mechanization and processing. Now, on to the issue of housing within the Nigeria Economic Sustainability Plan. What we're doing is we are building 300,000 houses. 300,000 mass social houses. Now, the idea, to understand how we're going to bring this to bear, you have to understand what the historical problem is. Historically, the challenge we have always had with housing, because government after government will come and make all sorts of claims and all of that about how they're going to do this and do that in housing, and nothing happens. And the reason why is because the issues are complex and they have to be dealt with in a very nuanced and detailed manner. First of all, the Constitution gives state governments the power over land use, right? So what you have to do if you're a housing developer, a private sector housing developer, is you will have to go to the state governments you will have to go and pay bribe to some bureaucrat, some civil servants, and some political appointees in some state ministry of lands, right? Before you will now get your documents. You will now get your CFO, your deeds, and all of that. Then by the time you have paid all those bribes, you now have to find your own money to now spend millions, sometimes billions, depending on the scale of your housing scheme, to go and build, upfront, build your housing scheme, right? So you build your housing scheme. Then, because you have spent so much money between the bribes to get your deeds and then to now build the housing project itself, you have paid out of your pocket for all of that. Once you have done that, the issue now is you're looking for immediate repayment because you paid so much money out of your nose. So now you're expecting the prospective Nigerian homeowner to come up with, you're asking a civil servant to come up with 40, 50 million naira upfront to pay for that, to pay for a unit in your housing project as a private sector developer and all of that. And of course, salaries don't meet that in this country. We don't pay salaries like that in this country. So what people are now doing is, of course, they're engaging in all sorts of corrupt practice, and that's why you can have a director in the Ministry of Works. In previous years, you have a director in the Ministry of Works who has tens of billions in an account somewhere because of fraud. These are some of the conditions in the country which enable and motivate people to engage in corrupt practice. So now what has now shifted, that is the problem. Now the solution is that on the front end, we are building these social houses by bulk buying all of the raw materials. By the way, almost all of which will be sourced in Nigeria. So you're talking of door handles, you're talking of window panes, you're talking of cement blocks. You're talking of so many different elements. Doors. You're talking of so many different elements that we are bulk buying. So every single last one of the 300,000 houses, we're bulk buying all the materials from the same sources. Because when you bulk buy, it's just like anything in economies of scale. When you go to the grocery store, if you pay 50 naira for Indomie packet, and then you instead buy the box of Indomie, you'll find that per unit, you're now paying 30 or 40 naira instead of the 50 naira. And all of that. So that's how it works with bulk buying these construction materials for these houses. We're going to bulk buy all of the elements. That's also going to allow us to ensure that there's standards equalization. So the same housing project we're building in Port Harcourt is the same housing project we're going to build in Potiskum and Makera and Damaturu and Tambuwal and Sokoto and all of that. Every single unit will be the same, standardized across the country. Now, those who will build these houses are going to be artisans, carpenters, and all Nigerians, by the way, who are going to form cooperatives across the various localities. They would have proven their competence. We would have seen the work they've done, know that they can do the work qualitatively. Once we have done the vetting process, they will now form cooperatives where they will now have the contract to do the housing scheme. We are even going to supply them. We're going to supply them with all of the standardized materials. So their own is essentially an issue of assembly because all of the materials are already on ground. All they're doing is putting it together and constructing the house, right? So that's how we're able to crash the cost of construction because of the bulk buying, which enables us, this is a very important point, each house is going to be at a rate of approximately not more than 2 million naira. We're talking of finished, completed 3-bedroom houses that will not go for more than 2 million naira. And that's very important because what we're going to do now is because government is not trying to make any kobo on these houses, these 2 million naira houses are now going to be directed. And so we've talked about front end of construction. Now it's issue of back end. How do you get it into the hands of Nigerians affordably? So what we're doing is CBN is coming in after the houses are constructed. They're going to pay the contractors for the houses. All right. So you're going to have the 300,000 paid for by the CBN. CBN will take ownership of the houses. Now, when government has ownership of the houses, what now happens? We're going to be in a position now to do a thorough vetting process, similar to what we did with NPower and all of these other programs, where it's all automated and all of that. Everybody has a fair shot. You don't need to be a senator or a minister's son or a governor's son to benefit. We're going to automate the process. They're going to submit your BVN. You're going to submit all the relevant details that you need to submit so that we can do a proper audit of your bank account, of all of those things, to make sure that you are of the economic status you are claiming to be. So, for example, when you say we are targeting with these social houses now, we're not just giving to all Nigerians. No, we're targeting minimum wage earners, those are who are earning 30,000 naira in a month, between minimum wage and middle income. So let's just say middle income will be a threshold of somewhere in the realm of, say, 800,000 naira per month income or less, right? So between 30,000 naira and 800,000 naira per month or less. So that is the demographic we're looking at. We're looking at teachers, civil servants, minimum wage earners, and all of that. That's the dimension of the people that we're looking toward, because the president is adamant that the disadvantaged Nigerians in this country must begin to benefit from their commonwealth. And that is the focus of the president, and that is what we're doing. So so once we vet the accounts, they are now going to be those who are approved after they have been vetted. They are now going to be in a position where CBN will now offer them almost zero interest mortgage, so that they can pay zero interest mortgage facility, so that they can pay for the house at a rate of approximately between 25,000 naira and 35,000 naira in a month, right? So even a minimum wage earner can afford that. And so that is the idea. So they will pay sustainably until they own the house. So you pay 25,000 until you have paid off the 2 million, and then the house is yours. And you paid almost no interest to anybody. You have paid, you're not paying for anybody's profit, because we're not making profit. You're literally just paying for the construction of the house. And that is the design of the program. Let me just say very quickly that the issues around how we're going to ensure that our people benefit from all the various elements of this program really have to do with making sure that the processes are transparent. That's why I'm so happy that some of you have mentioned the issue of how we're going to actually make some of these things happen. If we talk about, I've talked about agriculture, I've talked about housing. I want to talk a little bit about the Special Public Works Program, which is very strategic for multiple reasons. One, because it deals with local content, making sure that the roads that are being reconstructed by our young people under the Special Public Works Program are going to be built using Nigerian-sourced bitumen and other raw materials. The other one is it deals with the issue of equity of distribution of spread of jobs and benefits. That is why we put in place to make sure that 1,000 young people from every local government area of the Federation are recruited, so that everybody has equity in the process. Now, in terms of the actual recruitment process, what you have is a situation where we have state selection committees under the National Directorate of Employment, under the Ministry of Labor and Employment. The NDE has state selection committees that we put in place in every state that are going to be manned by officials who are not, for example, who are not political, right? So you have the state chairman of the Christian Association of Nigeria, the state chairman of the Islamic authorities within the various states. You have people from the academia, from the non-government sector on these committees, so that we can ensure that the recruitment processes are open and they're not trifled with in any way. I'm talking of the Special Public Works now, the 1,000 from every local government. So that's what we've done, because the president in everything has said that everything must be open to all Nigerians, irrespective of faith, ethnic and political affiliation, and the president is determined to ensure that happens. And I want to just say also that aside from the Special Public Works Program, which is not just road reconstruction, the road reconstruction component is even strategic in the sense that aside from dealing with raw materials from Nigeria, it also is, we have already identified those strategic roads that link strategic farms to strategic markets, that link strategic ports, industries to strategic ports. It's all very much part of the larger economic blueprint that has been put in place. So that's basically that. And then, of course, they're going to be involved in urban and rural sanitation exercises. There's also going to be, the president has pledged to the United Nations that we're going to plant 25 million trees. So a big part of this is also making sure that our young people, a section of those young people, are going to be planting trees, particularly in areas where we have a high rate of desertification and all of that, so that we can combat the effects of climate change, which have had really major impacts, and even national security impacts in terms of the movement of herders and all of that, their inability to access certain grazing areas and things of that nature because of the issues of the desertification. So there are so many issues involved in all of that. Now, let me also just say that the other major component of this is the issue of power. You know, Nigerians, when we talk power, we get very upset about it, and we should, because it's one area where all of us are tired. I'm no different than anybody else. When the light goes out in my house, it goes out just like everybody else. The issue is that for us, there are two ways that we're tackling this. One of them has to do with the economic sustainability plan. One of them is outside of the economic sustainability plan. I want to just ask any of our people again who are paying attention to this conversation, when we talk power, to just do yourself a favor and Google at some point, maybe after this conversation, the Presidential Power Initiative, or what we call the Siemens deal, right? The Federal Executive Council within the last 2 weeks or so approved the payment, the counterpart funding for the Siemens deal to take off. So we have already commenced the pre-engineering works on that. That is going to deal with our on-grid power issues, which are predominantly in the distribution subsector of the power sector, where essentially what you have is a situation where we're unable, our distribution companies that were privatized. If you don't mind, I can just take a moment to explain this so that we will understand it properly. What you had in the 2013 privatization exercise is you had some, and I'm not trying to be political here, but we have to say it as it is. You had some cronies and friends of the government at that time in 2013 who basically went to international banks, right, took out massive loans from these international banks to have dollar-denominated currency, massively so, millions in their account, in their commercial or business account. They will now submit those bank balances to BPE and all of those who are conducting the privatization to say, look, oh, we get money, money no be problem. We have money in our account. So once we win this bid, once we win this asset, we go get money that we can now go and take and use to upgrade the capacity of this moribund government power infrastructure and all of that. That was the deception. So now they win, the cronies of the government win these assets. I'm not talking of all. Some of them were legitimate investors. But unfortunately, few of those who are legitimate, out of the many who are not, are in generation, power generation, as opposed to distribution. Most of the distribution people were not quality investors. Now, so what they now did was once they got the asset, they now returned or paid back the loans, right? So that they're back at status quo, which means they hardly have any money. But now they control the asset. So they have the government asset and they're holding government by the throat because they control the asset and they don't have the money to upgrade the asset. So there's no improvement. So now that's that. So now we're looking at the solution because we cannot be continuing to complain about the people who came before us. The issue of TCN is completely separate because that's government owned. Transmission is still government owned under TCN, and we've done so much work. Just do a quick Google search of transmission rehabilitation and expansion program. We call it TREP. That is what TCN has been doing. We've received about over $1.5 billion from World Bank and other multilaterals, and we're doing massive work on transmission expansion. That's why in 2015 our transmission grid only had capacity to move 5,000 megawatts. As I speak to you now, our transmission grid has capacity to move 7,000 megawatts plus as I speak to you right now. The reason why, that's why I spent some time talking about distribution, because the reason why you are not able to see the 7,000 megawatts that we are generating and that we're able to generate and transmit in the country today is because of distribution. If you generate 1 million megawatts and you transmit 1 million megawatts and you can only distribute 3,000 megawatts, now only 3,000 megawatts you could see. Why? Because distribution is the critical point where you receive the power and distribute it into the homes and businesses of Nigeria. So if you cannot receive it and distribute it, then it doesn't matter what you're generating or transmitting. So the issue is not with TCN or transmission. It's even not with our generation companies. We have very good investors in generation. We had some legitimate people like Tony Elumelu win assets. He won the Ughelli assets. Since he took over the Ughelli asset after the privatization, he has almost doubled the capacity of that plant because he was a legitimate investor who had the capital to invest, right? So now, what the president has done is, because distribution is where the problem is, he now brought Siemens. through consultation with the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, they struck a deal that essentially will bring Siemens as a one-stop solution provider for the Nigerian power sector, from mostly in distribution, but eventually even in terms of generation and even assisting in some component parts of our transmission infrastructure to upgrade it beyond the 7,000 that we're talking about right now. So now, what they've done is Siemens has already moved around the country already with their engineers in conjunction with Nigerian engineers, working even with the private distribution company owners. And they have done a forensic technical audit of all the distribution infrastructure in the country. They know what is weak, they know what is strong, they know what needs upgrading, what needs brand new construction, new installation, what needs removal. They know all of that. On the basis of those audits, they now brought a roadmap that this is what you need, this is where you need it, and all of that to get distribution from point A to point B, right? So now, in phase one of the Siemens deal, which runs from 2020 to 2022, essentially, we are assuring Nigerians that distribution will be raised from the current 3,000 something megawatts approximately, at least on a normal day, to 7,000 megawatts, which means that all the power that we are currently able to generate in the country, all the power that we are currently able to transmit in the country, we will now finally see it in our businesses, in our homes, and all of that, which is what Nigerians have been clamoring for. That's on the one end. So distribution is being dealt with. And all of that. 5,377, we all know that that is the exception rather than the rule. I'm talking about the rule, the norm. That's why I emphasize the norm. Because if you look at what has happened sustainably over the course of the last 10 years, you will find that distribution, what we're actually wheeling out, has consistently ranged from 3,000 to 4,000 megawatts of power consistently. What you sometimes have is when we have a reduction in terms of interventions in the gas pipeline or oil pipeline sabotage. When there's reduction in some of these sabotage, you will now see gas production comes up, which means that power generation companies are receiving more gas to produce more power, and more of it is being wheeled out effectively. But that is at a maximum. It's a maximum. It's not what things generally are. That's what I'm trying to point out. So you can have a high point of 5,300 megawatts that will last for a day or a few days or something like that. But then usually there's an incident, whether it's a rainstorm or a gas pipeline issue, that cuts it back to the same 3,000, 4,000 megawatts that we're used to seeing and all of that. Not to speak of the failure of the distribution transformers and substations, because usually they cannot sustain that 5,300 megawatts. Even when they receive it, they only receive it for a very limited amount of time because there's a breakdown in the system and it goes back to what it was because of the weaknesses of the system, which is why Siemens is coming in to effect those upgrades. Now, with all of that said, you have, so that's what we're doing with the Siemens deal in phase one and all of that. Now, with that addressed, right, the issue that people have raised is the issue of corruption. We've invested billions of dollars in power. We haven't seen anything. Siemens, is it not the same thing? The difference is the president said no Nigerian politician will have any access to any of the money involved in this deal. How will he do that? He arranged for it to be done in such a manner that the Siemens engineering in Germany is going to be paid directly from the German Export Credit Agency. So what that means is that the state-linked German Export Bank is going to pay Siemens directly from Germany to Germany to produce to manufacture all of the things that are going to be installed in Nigeria, right? When they come for the installation, of course, there will be local content. There will be Nigerian engineers installing it in conjunction with them and all of that. Local content will still be respected, of course, but that is how it works. Then our own counterpart funding from Nigerian government has already been paid from Federation account directly to Germany. So it's not a situation where you're going to continue you see the same old things where somebody is sitting at the Senate Committee on Power or House Committee on Power and they're looking at how they're going to be, talking of, how they're going to share money and issue contracts to the ministers' wives and all of that nonsense. Those days are over. The president has taken that out of the equation. So we're going to get this done. As we are saying, we're going to get it done. Now, we're going to the NESP. Sorry about that, but I think it's an important issue for all of our people to understand what we're doing about the power sector. The NESP power component deals more with off-grid. Siemens deals with on-grid, right? Traditional grid, traditional gas-fired power plants, hydroelectric dam power production and all of that, deals with all of that. We now deal with off-grid. What is off-grid? Sustainable energy, solar power. What we're doing in the off-grid is we are focusing on the fact that in the informal economy, right now, the bulk of the national economy, 70% approximately, is informal economic activity. And we know that the bulk from the bulk of the funding from the international, the bulk of the national economy, bulk of the informal economic activity in the country is predominant in our rural communities. So we are focused in on making sure that we get sustainable 24 hours light to our rural communities, right? So what we've done is we're hiring 250,000 young people, young Nigerians, including many engineers, by the way, who we've already done extensive work through the National Agency for Space and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI. They've been working with foreign technical partners on the production of solar panels and solar home power systems and all of that. We're upscaling that work up, all right, to assemble, distribute, and most importantly, maintain 5 million solar home systems for our rural communities across this country. Again, equitably spread across all states of the Federation. Nobody will benefit more than other places. That's the idea. Now, the issue that is there, I want to just emphasize something very quickly. The issue that is there is that what we're doing is we're making sure that the solar home systems are not just going to be a white elephant that you just put in somebody's house just to say that you have put it in somebody's house. No, we're targeting rural farms where, for example, where you have a lack of refrigeration capacity and storage facilities that has led to massive post-harvest losses. The president has made unprecedented investments in our farmers. Over the course of the last 5 years, we all know about the anchor borrower scheme where millions of low-interest credit facilities were extended to our farmers, seedlings, the fertilizer prices cut in half because the president was able to revitalize over 31 fertilizer blending plants nationwide and all of that. Production is not, it has really gone up a lot. We all know that. But the issue has been post-harvest losses where you are producing and out of the 100% harvest that you have, only 50% is making it to the market. Because 50% has spoiled because of lack of refrigeration capacity in your storage facility or lack of quality road infrastructure linking farms to markets. Already I've talked about the Special Public Works Program, which deals with the road component, linking farms to markets with our young people reconstructing those roads with Nigerian raw material. That's one problem being dealt with. The other one, of course, is sustainable power. So we are targeting these 5 million solar home systems predominantly at rural farms so that they can effectively store their harvest so that we don't lose all of that produce that would have gone to moving us to self-sufficiency and ultimately to exporting the surplus on the international food export market and diversifying our earnings away from oil and gas. So that's one. Then, and we're not just targeting rural farms. We're also targeting rural primary health centers and rural primary schools, and of course, rural MSMEs, and then of course, rural homes as well. So all of that is on ground. And it's important for us to note that across all these programs, whether it's rural power, solar home systems, or whether it's agriculture, or whether it's housing and all of that, this is just phase one of a larger plan. The NESP is a 12-month plan. That is a transition plan from the ERGP that ran from 2017 to 2020 to what will ultimately be the ERGP successor plan that's going to run from 2021 to approximately 2023, right? So that's essentially how it works. Now the 12-month bridge that we're talking about is phase one of a plan that is going to feed into the ERGP successor plan. They're separate, yes, but they are working together. They are working in synergy. So the NESP is going to very seamlessly phase in. It's already being factored into the ERGP successor plan. So what am I saying specifically? When I say we're doing 300,000 houses in year one of the NESP, right? It's phase one of a 5-6 phase process where we're going to construct 1.8 million social mass housing units by over the course of the next 5 to 6 years. Same thing we're doing with power. When I say it's 5 million solar home systems, it is phase one of the program that is going to be 5 or 6 phase. So we're actually looking at 25 million solar home systems over the course of the next 5-6 years. So that's essentially how it works. But we're dealing first things first with year one, phase one across all of these critical sectors. I think I've touched on so much, but I think before I close, there are 2 other very critical elements that I think are very important here. One is the issue of the future of technology, what we call the future of work. This one is very close to the heart of the vice president. He's very much into innovation and digitizing some of the very antiquated systems of bureaucracy and government that we have come to know in the country. So what we've done is we have NPower taught us, and even NCDC, the Center for Disease Control during COVID-19, taught us that we can actually make government more accessible in real time for our citizens, so that we can be more effective for our citizens in terms of making sure that we can answer their questions in real time, as opposed to waiting for somebody to appear on Channels TV or NTA to discuss the issues. They can actually call and get their answers immediately. How have we done that? You recall during the contact tracing for COVID-19, you had NCDC on the phone daily with people calling, for those who flew in and filled out their information. We will call them every single day, follow them up, make sure that they're doing what they need to do, that they're isolating properly, that if they have any symptoms, they can tell us, all of that. All that has proven to us that we can open government. Because what you had up until now is a situation where you go to a government website, and what will you see? You have a situation where you have a number from NITEL from 1998 that's not going through, and all the information on the website is outdated and all of that. So what we're doing is we're working with the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, under the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, under Dr. Ibrahim Pantami. And what we're doing is we're going to build call centers across all the 6 geopolitical zones of the country, where we are going to employ 1 million young graduates, but because this is this requires a lot of literacy, this particular component of the plan. Many other components are not for graduates, so they're for every Nigerian youth. So when we talk farming, you don't have to have a certificate or college education to be involved with that. Even special public works, you don't need a college education to be involved with that, because we want to open up the space even for those who have not gone to school. But for this program, we need that academic competence for obvious reasons, right? So we're going to employ 1 million graduates, separate from all the others, where they're going to occupy these, they're going to be employed by these call centers, where we are going to do 2 things. One, government agencies like FIRS, like NNPC, like very critical agencies, EFCC, ICPC, so many different agencies, FCCPC, that's the Consumer Protection Council, for example, and many others, are going to now be able to leverage on these call centers to have our young people work as not just advocates, but as troubleshooters. Because what they're going to do is, 1, they're going to take questions from the public in real time. That's very critical. 2, they're going to be taking paper documents from the ministries and all of that. And we're going to be digitizing all of this data. We're digitizing all of our records, all of the data, all of the contracts, everything, because it's part of our open government initiative that we're doing over the course of the next, it's a 10-year program that we have already started on by automating all of these systems. So we're going to be digitizing these records. And then, of course, it's very critical for the sake of moving forward that the issue of sustainability is not going to lie in just government agencies. We're also co-opting very intentionally. This is another one of the vice president's innovations, is we're bringing in the private sector. So we're going to bring in the MTNs, the Glows, the Diamond, the GTB, and all of these various people, all of these various institutions who have interest, who will pay for paid for the services of these call centers of these young people, and they are going to ensure that there's a sustainable revenue stream to ensure that these jobs are sustainable, and that these facilities are maintained, and all of that to serve not just the private sector but the public sector. And of course, our citizens are going to gain, because government is going to be more accessible to them with websites that have updated information, and with their ability to now have their questions answered directly by the institutions and all of that. So troubleshooting is actually going to be a reality in Nigeria, and our young people are going to benefit from the jobs that are created from that. So that's a major component of it. I saw a comment, somebody just pointed out that 7,000 megawatts of electricity in phase one of the distribution is not very good and all of that. My brother, phase one is phase one for a reason. That means it is the phase before phase 2 and 3, but you cannot begin to run before you have learned how to crawl. You have to crawl, then you walk, and then you run. And that's how it works. Because the people who promised us 40,000 megawatts by 2020, they sounded like they were running, but are we running? We're not running. Why? Because we were not realistic in our planning in terms of pragmatic solutions and how we're going to deliver on those solutions. So we're not interested in making massive promises and telling you we're going to deliver the moon when we cannot even walk on the cement on the ground. So that's how this is going to work. Phase 1 is 7,000, phase 2 is 11,000 megawatts, and then phase 3 by 2025 is 25,000 megawatts. Now, the last point I want to mention before I open the floor is we've touched on agriculture, we've touched on housing, we've touched on rural power, we've touched on special public works program, we've touched on future of work through digital outsourcing. The sixth one that I want to touch, even though I really should mention the one on MSME intervention very, very quickly, is basically we're about to launch it. In fact, I believe in the next few weeks, we're providing payroll support for 300,000 MSMEs nationwide to save over 1 million jobs from extinction, essentially. So we're going to provide payroll support in the form of grants. These are not loans. So that means that these people are not going to have to pay these back. These are grants, but they have to qualify through a stringent set of requirements. And it's not overbearing. One is that the issues of, you have to prove that, number one, you've been registered with CAC, right? You have to prove that these are the employment rules that you have had to pay with verifiable information about the BVNs of those whose accounts you paid into so that we can vet it. Then you have to also prove that you are updated on your tax payment. You have paid your taxes as an MSME, you have your tax clearance certificate and all of that. Once you have done all of that and shown that you are above board, you have done things properly, then you are going to be eligible for this payroll support. So that's just one out of several measures we're putting in place for MSMEs within this, right? So that's that. Now, we call it the Survival Fund. Now, let's move on to the final issue of the gas expansion program, which we're very excited about as an administration. What you have in the gas expansion program, NiGAC is what we call it, is really two major legs of what we feel are going to be the future of Nigerian energy, right? On the one leg, you have CNG, which is compressed natural gas. Compressed natural gas, that's CNG. Then on the other one, you have LPG, which of course is liquefied petroleum gas. I'm sure someone here is probably deep into the oil and gas sector and all of that. Now, so for us, we have been, of course, we all know what we have been doing with much of our gas. We've been flaring gas, literally burning dollars. We've just been burning dollars, flaring this gas, destroying our economy, destroying our environment in the process. Now, what we are doing is we are going to create, we're not just worried about creating demand, we're also creating supply for the demand that we're also creating for CNG. What am I talking about? For those who are who are more unaware of CNG and how it can benefit the economy, will know that we have just within the last 1 or 2 months, we have liberalized the downstream petroleum sector, right? It's well known now. We have totally removed subsidy, not just for today, but we have assured our people we are not going back. We are never going back. So that is gone. So now PMS, petroleum, the fuel is going to be determined solely by market forces and the international oil price, landing cost, and all of that. Now, all we're doing now in the petroleum sector is to bring in PPPRA. That's the products pricing, petroleum products pricing regulatory agency, who will now show Nigerians how much has been done. What the price should be. So they will give you a band of what the price should be, but they are not telling marketers what price the product should be sold at. That's the difference between what was happening before and what is happening now. All we're doing is we're showing Nigerians this is what it should be based on the landing cost, so that Nigerians will know what the profit margins are that the marketers are earning on the PMS and all of that. That's what PPPRA are doing now. So we've liberalized. My point in saying that is because we have done that, and because, of course, that's going to save us about $2 billion a year, which we can reinvest in social investment, in infrastructure, in the things that matter. We're now going to have a situation where we need to find an alternative in terms of alternative energies and alternative fuels. So CNG now comes in, because CNG comes in with, CNG will allow for somebody who is filling their tank with PMS, with traditional petroleum motor spirit. They can fill their tank with CNG product at 50%. 50% of the cost of the PMS full tank is the CNG full tank. So it's a very viable alternative in terms of, the economy of our people. So now what we're doing, the most important thing that we need to understand now is under this plan, we're working with private marketers, private sector operators to establish CNG conversion points, because you have to establish the supply, establish the demand before you establish the supply, right, in a way, or do it simultaneously, which is what we're doing. We are establishing the demand by establishing these CNG conversion points where any Nigerian can affordably take their car, whether a new car, whether a big boy car or old Tokubo car, they can take it to the CNG conversion point where they will be able to get their car converted from PMS dependent to CNG compliant, right, or CNG dependent. They just go, they pay a small fee, and it's converted. Now your car is now CNG compliant. Any car. So now the issue now that you have created the demand, you now have to ensure that the supply is there. So on the other side of it, on the supply side, we're working with NNPC that already, of course, has filling stations nationwide in almost all of the localities, and we're also working with these other private marketers that fill the space, Total, etc., to now establish CNG filling points at the various filling stations where you have PMS and all of that. So that's on the CNG side. So that's going to be huge in terms of utilizing Nigerian CNG, right, for a brand new revenue stream for the country, while also bringing down the cost of energy for our people, for their businesses, for their personal use, which will also bring down the cost of commodities. Because once you're paying a half price for fuel, for logistics, then of course naturally the products will be cheaper. That's from bread to eggs to everything. Everything will come down. So that's the importance of CNG. Then LPG, of course, we all know it as the cooking gas cylinder, right? LPG used in the cylinders for cooking gas. We're trying to liberalize, really open up market penetration for LPG products. So we're going to create fabrication yards nationwide under this plan, where we're going to manufacture LPG cooking cylinders en masse, creating hundreds of thousands of jobs in the process, where we're finally going to wean ourselves off of kerosene, which is environmentally and even to the health of our people using kerosene, and predominantly in the rural communities because of its affordability. We're going to crash the cost of LPG because it's going to be widely accessible. It's no longer going to be a big man's preserve, as it has always been, and all of that, or middle-class preserve. So by making sure that we have all of these new containers and all of that, you can see my light has gone out now. You will now begin to have a situation where LPG will be widely usable for our people to access and all of that. So that's a major part of what we're doing between LPG and CNG in the NiGAC.
So thank you so very much, Ajuri. This has, in fact, it has been enlightening. We've gotten a lot. So I just want to recap some things that some persons asked. Now, someone is saying something about a gas framework. Now, that's exactly what Mr. Ajuri just tried explaining now. That the government is trying to, convert Nigeria from, being a fuel-dependent nation fully in terms of, fueling our cars, to a gas-dependent nation. So he mentioned a plan. I think he said gas expansion projects, NiGAC. So they have a plan in that regard based on the explanation he has given now. And please, for many of us, we always have this question, we always have this issue about, implementation. And I think you gave some feedback on implementation. But I want to take you back now to the very beginning, where you spoke about the. Okay, I marked that first question. So you spoke about the high value export commodities that governments intend to produce and of course export as a way for us to generate forex. So one very important question I want to ask is this. Now we know that the state governments are giving the land. Federal government working through the Special Public Works Program, we clear and prepare the land for cultivation. So at the point of cultivation, do you have an idea how exactly can young people, interested in agriculture, at least have, even if it's an hectare, 2 hectares, that they can farm these high value commodities? So is there a specific plan in place on how young people can access these opportunities? And even Nigerians in general that don't have any political connection or affiliation.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, I think the important thing here is when we talk about, land in this country is really not, fortunately for us, it's really not a very expensive thing, particularly when you're willing to put in the sacrifice and the sweat of going into some of these rural zones where you don't even have to purchase the land, you can even rent the land. I can tell you about a story of a young person I know personally who, with NYSC stipend, not from a rich family, did not have a brother who was anything in government or anybody in government, took NYSC stipend and paid about 5,000 naira for a month, on a monthly basis, paid 5,000 naira to a community to take a portion of the land, to use a portion of the land to begin farming. Very, very basic. And this is somebody with no background in farming, just out of passion. He just Googled the basic farming practices and literally started from there. Today, this is just about 4 or 5 years ago that he started like that. Today, he not only owns that land, he has expanded, he has bought more land around the area, and his farm is now worth over, I'm not exaggerating, over 1 billion naira. He's producing poultry, he's producing so many different food products on that land. My point is that it's not necessarily a situation where you're going to queue up at a government agency, right? And they're going to say, okay, you're going to take this plot of land and we expect you to do wonders with it. And that's just the way it's going to work. Because I think there's an expectation that, and as much as government will encourage farming, I think there's an expectation by some, not by everybody, but by some, that that the whole process should be like almost spoon-fed in a way, where we're saying there's some effort involved, because you're competing with people who have experience in farming, right? So you have people who are existing farmers who all they know is farming. All they've done in their life is farming. When we were in university, they were on the farm. You understand? There are so many people like that. So when there are a lot of people that have existing farmlands who are currently occupying, a lot of the investment in this program is existing farmlands, right? Even though we're expanding, of course, that's why we're doing land clearing, is because we're creating new farmlands. The idea is to be able to, really benefit from the experience of those who are on the farmlands, to bring in new hands who will now be able to use that skills acquisition, that wealth acquisition, to eventually, get their own lands and develop their own lands over a period of time. It's similar to Empower. There are inevitably, my brother, there are going to be those young people on Empower who all they care about, my brother, is the stipend. All they care about is the stipend, the skills. We can talk skills every day. All they care about is the stipend. I have had conversations with young people like that. Then there are other young people who are using the Empower scheme the way that it was intended, which means that it's not just about the stipend. The stipend is a means to an end. It's not the end. They now use the stipend and the skills to create their own MSMEs. That's why one of the things we're so proud of is out of the 500,000 initial sets, batch A and B of Empower, over 110,000 of those young people started their own MSMEs. And so they are not amongst those who are demanding that NPower is made permanent and all of that. So my point is, a lot of this has to do with the drive and the desire of the people involved. We have land that you can go to any of these rural communities across the country, almost within any state, almost within every state, to be able to say, look, I will give the community head this much money, I will rent this land, and I'll be responsible for cultivating this land, hiring some cheap hands to help me do it. If you're determined to do it, that's what you will do. If you're not so determined, then perhaps you will need a bit more urging, a bit more, walking by the hand with government and all of that. So it's really, a lot of these things depend on the will and motivation and determination of the people that are involved. But let me also say that it is true that obviously when we talk about some of these government plans, particularly around the NESP, there's no doubt that government has a major responsibility. When we're talking about 2.3 trillion naira expenditure, have a major responsibility to not just be transparent, but also to make sure that the processes are very open. That's why with the Special Public Works Program, with these state selection committees, we made them public. It's not a secret committee. We made the names public. People know who they are. And then in due course, they're going to announce where you will go, where you will physically go in terms of the recruitment process, in terms of applying for the recruitment process. So everything is going to be open. The same thing applies for the housing program. It will be an open bidding process for these carpenters nationwide, artisans nationwide, and all of every element of it will be open. And those who will benefit from the Jobs for Food program, it will be no different. There will be an open declaration as to what is involved. People like me will be on Twitter sharing with that information in real time as all of that information comes out. Many of those processes have not even come out for people to tap into. So some of it is just exercising a bit of patience and knowing that we're going to get to it. But let me answer one question very quickly. Somebody asked the question about electric cars. Then why are we talking of CNG for vehicles and all of that when there's electric cars? First of all, let me just very politely answer my friend by saying that electric cars do not drop from the moon. There is a very serious and rigorous set of innovative processes, massive billions of dollars of research and investment and development that go into the electric vehicle industry. That's why, as wealthy as the United States is, for example, you can see how long it has taken them to get to the point where they can even introduce in a scalable manner electric vehicles. So that is not to say that we should not aspire to eventually get to a point where we're utilizing electric vehicles. But as you're doing that, you're also pragmatic about what resources you have now, right? And how you can maximize those resources for the development of not just our people, but our nation. So when we have massive gas reserves, as we have, and they're expanding by the day, I would have loved to have gotten deeper into gas policy in terms of what we're doing in terms of gas pipeline expansion and what we're doing in terms of creating an international export market for Nigerian gas. The AKK pipeline, which we have just launched from Ajaokuta, Kaduna to Kano, is just phase one of a trans-Saharan gas pipeline that's going to take Nigerian gas out of the Niger Delta to North Africa into the Arabia. That is very, very critical for us because that creates, again, another means of that creates export market for Nigerian gas directly through Nigerian pipelines. And that's very strategic for the future of the Nigerian economy because we know that even going to dry up in terms of demand, it's going to dry up over the next 20, 25 years. Gas is not going to dry up. It is not drying up anytime soon because all of the industries in Europe, Americas, and all of these other places are powered by what? Gas. Not to speak of Nigerian industries that will be coming up across the north with this pipeline. So there are so many different things that have been done in terms of gas policy. Maybe on a different day we can hit gas specifically because that's really one of the future, really one of the very the central pillars of the future of the Nigerian economy away from oil. Now, let me just also say that I think you asked me a question, my brother. If you can rehash one of the questions you asked me, if I have not answered it.
Okay. So, Lodo, I think I just asked you one question. That was just what I asked. Then, of course, you already spoke about the gas policy that somebody actually mentioned. Someone said that what are the fiscal regulations in place to ensure. So, just like you said, Tim, that talking about gas is like another topic entirely on its own. Well, I think you also said something about the fact that government has a policy in place and a plan in place So at least for gas production, and looking at the fact that gas production is the future of Nigeria when it comes to our natural resources. But we cannot obviously delve into that. This is not an energy session. We are focusing on the NESP. So please, to the schools, and aviation sector, the hospitality sector, the tourism sector, what is the process for applying? You've already said the requirements, but is the process open yet? Are they started calling for people to apply? Will it be the CBN managing the application, or the banks? Who exactly will be responsible for this process?
Thank you very much. Great question. So, okay, so now we have to make sure that we know the sections of the interventions and how that works before we know who is going to be supplying the resources, right? So let me start from the issue of education that you raised. The education intervention is going to be derived from a $2.5 billion facility that we are accessing from the World Bank. The Minister of Finance has already come out publicly and explained that to Nigerians very transparently. Now, out of the 2.5 billion, and by the way, the money has not yet come in. We have received the $3.4 billion withdrawal of our membership contributions that we had made to the IMF over a period of time. During times of economic crisis, IMF allows developing countries to remove or to withdraw their membership dues that they had paid over a long period of time to help them with their economic crunch, and then eventually you pay it back. So out of the membership dues we paid over a period of time, they've allowed us to withdraw the $3.4 billion, which we will pay back after 3 years or so once things have settled down. Now, the World Bank funds have not come in yet. But when they do, because we know that the approval is already it's coming, when the funds do come, how it's going to break down is out of the $2.5 billion, $1 billion is set aside for state governments. Why is that important? We all know that the Nigerian Constitution gives the issue of primary education, which is obviously 80% of the burden in the sector, to the state governments, right? And we know that a major area of focus for us is making sure that we are able to develop that infrastructure, primary education infrastructure, secondary education infrastructure. Now, what we're doing in that line is the president was determined that if we're going to give this money to the states, we must put in place verifiable, auditable mechanisms to ensure that all of the expenditure is very closely monitored and evaluated in such a manner that they have to show us what they've done with the money that we're giving to them. So what we have set up is what we call P4R, right? Which is a pay for results scheme. So the $1 billion will be given to state governments in tranches to enhance primary education and primary health care infrastructure. These are primary health centers. Now, they will come to us, they will come to federal government, essentially, and they will say, okay, these are the primary health centers, primary schools that we are going to construct. This is how we're going to construct them. This is the cost implication of constructing them. You understand? This is the number. This is where they'll be constructed. All the information that we want, we will have it. Now, on the basis of that blueprint that they give to us, right, which we will go, we verify it and all of that, we will now give them a tranche. Let's just say we give them 20% of the $1 billion to begin work on what they said they are going to do. On the after they come to us for the second tranche of the second 20%, for example, we would have now gone down and evaluated, okay, what have you people done with the first 20% based on the roadmap you have given to us? Let's see if it's commensurate and all of that, to fight contract bloating and all of the things that we know have been issues in our public administration. Now, so that is how the P4R system is going to work. So not only are they going to get the money for the primary health system, primary education system, but we're also doing it in a manner where the results actually have to show on the ground. Because if the results don't show with the first 20%, the final 80%, they will not see it. That's the way that it works. Now, the issue of direct interventions in terms of private schools, private hospitals, and all of that. We have already put in place a 1.1 trillion naira facility within the Central Bank of Nigeria for this purpose. Already, we have about 100 billion naira set aside for the issue of, 199 billion rather, set aside for primary health and research and development in the health sector interventions. Now, the funding for that, in terms of the actual process for accessing those funds, of course, they have not come out yet. The reason why is because not all of the funding has been secured, as I've mentioned. It's not actually in hand as we speak. Even though the approvals, the tentative approvals have been given, the money is coming, the money is not actually in our hand right now. So to begin to talk about disbursement is probably presumptuous at this point. So that's essentially what you have. But again, as soon as that information is out, we will make sure that that information is made open, similar to what we've done with everything from conditional cash transfer to N-Power and all of that. And again, the World Bank is going to be directly involved in the monitoring and evaluation of the expenditures of these funds that are going to be given to the states to deal with the primary health and education issues that are going to be addressed with those funds. So yes, it's not just a Nigerian government is watching you program. It's also Nigerian government plus multilateral institutions are watching you program. So that is it.
Thank you very much, boss. Thank you so much. So just to add a quick one, does this intervention also covers hotels, the hospitality and tourism sector? Do they also get interventions?
Yes. Thank you so much. Yes, very important. So we've looked at the sectors that were very hard hit by COVID-19. There are multiple sectors that were very hard hit by COVID-19. You're talking about aviation. We all know how aviation has just been devastated by COVID-19 shutdowns. And not just in terms of obviously ticket sales and all of that, but even in terms of the functionality of their planes having been stalled now for several months of inactivity and all of that. So there's maintenance. There are so many things that have to go into that. Then, of course, oil and gas has been majorly hit because obviously there's nobody buying aviation fuel and all of that. There's nobody, people are not massively purchasing fuel because they're not traveling like they used to travel. Businesses were shut down, so logistics have gone down. So oil and gas has been hit. Then, of course, hospitality, as you rightly mentioned, has been massively hit and all of that. So that's all very much involved. Now, the challenge that is there is for the 1.1 trillion, you have the hospitality, oil and gas, aviation, tourism. All of these subsectors have been prioritized in the accessibility of these facilities as they're coming out, when they come out. So to answer your question, they have been absolutely prioritized. The central bank has come out and said so. Already we've already done the 50 billion naira for MSMEs and households fund, which has already been exhausted. We're even expanding it as we speak now. We're expanding that facility and reopening the portal for Nigerians to access once again. And that should be, that should be happening very, very soon. So the same way that we came out openly with an automated portal for people to come out to benefit from that, you can expect that companies operating in these sectors you have mentioned will also have that opportunity as soon as the portal is ready to open.
So a last one, because I think we're far spent. So a last question. For we at the Nigerian Global Affairs Council, one of the major things, of course, we intend doing with this particular plan is, 3 months, 6 months, as the money comes in, as they are being disbursed, we intend, doing a little of policy tracking to be very sure that all of these plans, are executed and they achieve the expected outcome. So on the part of the government, you guys are the ones that designed the plan. Are there measures in place to ensure strict monitoring, in terms of implementation? We shouldn't just sit in Abuja and get feedback from the field. Are there measures in place to ensure that even those giving the feedback, there's somebody verifying the feedback they're giving, and just to ensure that everybody is up and doing?
Right. No, very, very important observation and question there, my brother. So yes, absolutely. I was very privileged to have had an opportunity to sit in on those meetings when the plan was being produced. Of course, chaired by the Vice President, you had the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Minister of Finance, Budget, National Planning, NNPC, GMD, Minister of State Petroleum, Minister of Aviation, Minister of Transport, Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Education, all of that. They now were the ones sitting around the table deciding how the plan will be compiled. What you had was a situation where the Vice President chairing the meetings, he would, he's a professor, he's a very meticulous man. And his own is pragmatic. He doesn't like too much grammar. What he wants is to find out, how is this thing going to hit the ground? I want to know what this thing is going to look like on the ground. What are the issues on the ground that we are not thinking about, that we need to think about? Those are the kinds of questions he will ask. So, so he would pointedly ask each official around the table, okay, you're saying that you're going to be able to deliver this, this, and that with this amount of money, right? Then he will now ask very intelligent questions about, okay, what about this? What about that? What about this? In terms of how it's going to be affecting implementation on the ground. So that was all part of the planning process, as opposed to a situation where in history, I can tell you, you would have a situation where you would have a president or a vice president around the table. The ministers will say, okay, Oga, if you give me 50 billion, I fit deliver 100,000 jobs by doing X, Y, and Z. And president will say, oh, okay, that sounds good. Okay, and he signs off. Bam, that's it. But by the time you know it, that money has been given in different types of consultancies and subcontracts and all of that to people and friends and all of that. What the vice president said is that for us now, it's not enough just to design this plan. The president has given the vice president authority to not just design the plan, of course, which he has done with his team, but authority to oversee the implementation of the plan. So those who designed it will also be overseeing the implementation. The vice president and his team will be flying around the country, moving around the country, all the localities of this country, making sure that what they have designed and the money for which those projects have been released are being executed just as envisaged. And so that is essentially it. So in terms of oversighting and implementation, aside from the third-party multilateral monitoring and evaluation mechanisms that are in place, there's also the direct or supervision of the vice president and his team, who know exactly what should be expected on the ground and will make sure that what is expected on the ground is delivered on the ground for the benefit of our people.
Thank you very much, boss. Thank you so much. So someone just said, is the FG looking at relieving SMEs of multiple and stifling taxation and regulation? I think, yes, if you look at it critically, the federal government passing the Finance Act, there were a lot of relaxation in terms of taxes and SMEs pay. Even yesterday, the president assented to the Kaba Act 2020, which of course also gives a lot of relief to small businesses and how you can even register your businesses. So on those particular ones, I think if we just give a final talk on that, so that we'll wrap it up at this point with this.
Right. Thank you very much. Yes. So I'm happy that you mentioned the finance bill, because I think not enough investigation was conducted by Nigerian media on the content of that bill. I don't think enough sensitization was done. Yes, we tried on our own small part in terms of making sure people knew what was involved, put it on our Twitter accounts, went on TV, radio. We did all of that. But the major work, obviously, the media has a huge role to play in ensuring that people understand how government policies work. Not to make government look good, but just to tell people the truth about what it is that policies will mean to them. And unfortunately, we don't really have too much of that in the country. We have a situation where, we like sensationalism. So we'll point out the one thing that we think is controversial, and then we make that the story instead of looking at what the contents of the bills are, which you will see on places like Sky News, Al Jazeera. They'll be looking at content as opposed to just kind of the shallow, sensational perspectives. But now, with that said, the finance bill has provided us an opportunity to really look at, to really not just adjust the tax code, which was fantastic, but it has also now brought down the tax rates for MSMEs in the country, many of them to zero. That means if you are a company that generates annual profit turnover of less than 25 million naira, annual profit of less than 25 million naira, you pay zero company income tax, zero. Whereas before, I think it was, I don't want to misspeak, but I know it was not zero before. And all of that. So we have done that. And then we have also reduced the rate of those who have annual profit margin of between 25 million naira and 50 million naira. We have reduced their income tax rate by 50%. And then those who earn more than 50 million naira, 100 million naira it's 25 million naira to 100 million naira. Then above 100 million naira, Those are the large industries. Those ones essentially maintain their tax, payment percentage. So now that has been done. The issue of Karma that was released yesterday deals with we have ended secret ownership of companies. That is a major, major anti-corruption tool. From now on, nobody, no former government official or current government official will be able to hide behind anybody in terms of ownership of companies. Secret ownership is dead in Nigeria as of yesterday. And unfortunately, if you watched the news yesterday, you will think that nothing happened. You just see headline that says President Muhammadu Buhari signs Kama bill, and nobody does any investigation into what that means for Nigerians. Let me tell you what it means. No secret ownership of oil blocks, of plots of land, of shares in companies. None of that anymore. It is dead. It is illegal now as a result of what happened yesterday. Was historic. This is legislation that we wanted to pass in the 8th Assembly, but Bukola Saraki and his friends knew why they didn't want to pass this legislation. Fortunately, the 9th Assembly has passed it. So really, we're going to be able to really uproot corruption with this bill, amongst many other things that have to do with easing the process of doing business even further as we seek to elevate ourselves in the World Bank rankings even further than we already have. So that's that. Now, the final point I want to make before I go is the issue of what government agencies can do during this COVID-19 time to help MSMEs in terms of reducing fees, etc. This is another area which I wish could receive more attention in the media. NAFDAC had already reduced the product registration prices for MSMEs bringing new products into the country's commercial space by 80% reduction in those fees. NAFDAC is just one example. Across several different, yes, I will share, somebody is asking if I can share the contents of the Kama bill. I will send it to my brother, the moderator, and I'm sure he will share with you expeditiously. So that is what we have done. So we have government agencies, not just NAFDAC, that's just one example. We have several agencies who have come in and slashed the cost of various registration processes, various regulatory approval processes, various fees and all of that to accommodate our MSMEs in the time of COVID-19. Unfortunately, many of these things, like I said, are just underreported. But I would just ask you, now that you have heard directly from me, you can also do a quick Google search and find out more details about what I'm referring to. So with that, I thank all of you very much for engaging me today on these issues. I look forward to future engagements. And really what it does is it provides hope that we're together in all of this thing. We're not alone. We're not on an island. And that, these notions that Nigerians have of us as a youth, as a demographic, that we're all basically just, lazy data users who just want to be on social media, watching Big Brother all day, talking, MI and Davido and all of that. That's all we can do. This group here proves that we have thinkers, that we have innovators, that we have people who are thinking in terms of the future, about the country, about how we're going to make this country great. And that makes me feel very optimistic. And I just want to congratulate all of you on what you're doing and where you're heading. And I look forward to future partnership. God bless all of you. Please stay safe out there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so very much. God bless you also. Thank you also for having us here. So for every one of us, thank you so much. It has been wonderful. It's been excellent. We've had a wonderful dialogue today. Please, for whatever questions we have, we can easily throw them on our social media pages, the Nigerian Global Affairs Council, and you can go to our website where we update a lot of information on government policies. Thank you very much. See you again next week, Saturday. Bye.